Commander Cockings and Comparative here yet again for another very exclusive, special, amazing Trekyards mission briefing, just like we did with another ship a few months ago, the Franklin. Stuart, there's a new ship on the block. Canon.
What?
New.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. We should maybe go do some discovery and maybe see if we can find out what it's about, what it's called, what it looks like. I don't know.
I wondered what sort of joke you'd make, and I've got to say, classic Captain Foley. Love it. So, have you heard about this new ship? Have you seen a single post about it? Has it...
I have heard about it and I have seen it. You actually saw it before I did and sent me the link for it because I guess wasn't paying attention to the internet. So yes, I have seen it.
And it's been everywhere now. In our circles, it's been everywhere, for good and for bad. And we're filming this. It came out on Saturday. On the panel was at 12 p.m. my time, 12 a.m. whichever 12 it is. We go to the next day. And I stayed up to see Twitter and Facebook and stuff, and it came out, and I talked to you about it. And then we were sort of getting back to live tomorrow. But now today, Monday, here is Trekyards about the USS Discovery. So, I guess I'll just skip straight to a picture of the ship, the other end picture. So if you go to the 17th picture, and just tell me your first impressions of this ship, because just briefly, and then we'll go back. And then we'll go back.
You know what? I'm really impressed with it. I wasn't a huge fan of the Ralph McQuarrie original one.
No.
For many reasons. We've talked about those before.
Yeah.
But this reimagining of it is very interesting and very cool to me. I think they did a fantastic job, so I'm happy with it personally.
Yeah, and my first impression was, hey, that's the Ralph McQuarrie design. Interesting. Huh. Total respect for them for using it, because that shows a lot of faith and that shows a lot of like Trek lore. What I keep saying, it's the best version of that ship I've seen, which says something.
Well, there is one I like a little bit. Well, not maybe better, but I mean, we've talked about it in our mission briefing on the Ralph McQuarrie one. That's Christopher Dahl's design. Looks fantastic, and I actually said that was an awesome reimagining. So is this, just in a different way. So this is awesome too.
Just for me, I just wish they hadn't used, like, if this was the new hero ship, if it's an anthology one-off season, that's awesome, perfect choice. If it's a multiple season arc, I don't really want us to be the main hero ship. That's my only thing. Like, that's the caveat. Great version. If it's a one-off, perfect. Wouldn't have picked it as a multi-season arc though. Like, it's no Voyager, it's no Sovereign, it's no, you know what I mean? But it's not meant to be an Enterprise. It is meant to be something different. But we are going to talk about all the individual stuff. But let's go all the way back to the first picture. And I'll just disclaim, I looked to find the 1080p version of this trailer because I wanted the highest res. So this is the Netflix version. So Netflix is going to be sponsored by Netflix, not really, but it's plastered everywhere here. So yeah, this is an interesting trailer. Now it's worth pointing out that we've heard after the fact that they only had this is a design that was only, it's sort of 5 days through approval. Like, it's a very early. Yeah. This is the way they're going, not necessarily the final version of that. And I think the amount of feedback they're going to get, they'll probably use that to make changes, or modifications, because at the end of the day, fan reaction is important. They're kind of doing a good job almost releasing an early version. And again, the CG was also, it's kind of like their first version of the ship flying. So that's that. It's not final CG. It's not whatever. So we're gonna, and again, the design isn't final. So we're gonna look at this in detail, take it with a pinch of salt. This won't be the final, but we can still take pieces off it and extrapolate, because at the end of the day, they wouldn't have put these fundamental details on unless there was a reason to do that. So I've worked out some notes. I'm really fascinated to see what you think. The first picture is just the intro. I thought to start with the start.
So the next picture has a space dock, but it's in an asteroid. And this actually goes back to one of the Ralph McQuarrie paintings with the exact same blue circles in an asteroid. So they're really sticking to that, which is amazing. Now, the problem that this throws up for me is, and for a lot of people, is nobody's sure of the time frame when this takes place. However, I have heard some speculation, even stuff that Brian Fuller has said, that kind of locks it very firmly into where it's supposed to be.
Well, shall we talk about that when we get to the NCC? We can talk about that, because that's a very interesting thing. But if we go to the next picture, I up the brightness of this shot, so you get to see a bit more of the detail. I mean, it's almost spot on for that design, and it's actually kind of a cool looking space station. Like, I actually really dig it. It's simple. It's efficient. You can see them as being sort of shield generators, and it's so like that's what the Ralph McQuarrie concept was. This far away, it's like this exactly both combined. This is what he imagined.
Yeah. And I gotta say too, that was a really cool reveal to have the sun and then to pan down, see these dots. You're like, what are those? What are those? That was part of the ship, and then to go, oh wait a minute, and then have the light come behind the ship and just backlight it was just, whoa, that's cool. I mean, the way they revealed it was awesome to me.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting trailer. I also had the music, which is pretty interesting, very different but very kind of interesting. It was again the demo piece for the music composer. They got him the gig, so they sort of reused his piece. Which is, again, they really want to get something out here. You could tell. Very again, it shows this is different to every other Star Trek show before it. You know, this is work in progress. It's showing how media has changed the environment, that we're putting things out in different states. You know, this also, you know, a Netflix, at CBS All Access. This is not based on ratings in the sense of, you know, ads. This is a very different style of show. You know, it's going to be something different, a whole different beast. But the next picture is straight into the ship. And I knew what the design was from that first picture, clearly. But now in my brain I was like, okay, what are the details?
Yeah.
So the Nacelle Bassard caps, thoughts?
I think that going with this shape of nacelle, first of all, is a brilliant idea. Way better than the round ones we see on the Ralph McQuarrie ones, or the small little dinky ones.
Compliments
They
it better.
really, yeah, they really lengthened them out and made them much nicer. And to have 3 Bassard collectors on the end of each one, I really like. But immediately when I saw that, I thought, well, this is a much older design. This is like an old style ship. But I love the way that looks. I think that's a neat take on it, and it's something that I necessarily would not have thought of to do. So congratulations to John Eaves or whoever was responsible for doing this. I think they did a great job making this look different and new, but old maybe. Who knows?
Obviously, we're going to talk about timeline stuff because we can't not. These details are relative. But in the terms of the continuity of the universe, I won't go into the full stuff, but think about the NX-01 has a single Bassard, a small one. The Connie has one big Bassard. After the Connie, you get the refit. After that, you get Excelsior. After that, you get the, you know, rounded glass element of the C and then D and then whatnot. So having 3 is like saying we're pushing the technology level up to make a bigger ship. We have to have more fuel coming in. We can't build one big Bassard, we have to up the scale by having multiple. That was my take from this.
That was not my take from this, because I assumed that, like I said, when I first saw the design, I thought, okay, this is an older time period. This is an older ship, and the way it's got 3, you know, they're kind of, maybe they don't have the technology to build one like the Enterprise E that big, you know, and the way they're kind of protected also with those like covers over them. It's nothing. It's like nothing we've seen before, really. And so I'm thinking older design.
Now, by older, do you mean older than NX or just older than Connie?
Older than Connie for sure. But this almost feels older than NX. We know it obviously wouldn't be.
Well, you didn't. Well, that would be. Well, there's still some time. You know, it could be the first Warp 2 ship. Not sure why it would be, but you never know. You know, maybe they restarted at NX. So anyway. One thing I see from this is, you know, it's obviously these like elements like that strengthens it. For me, that's like saying it's pushing towards the cage, because they have it being a solid structure plus the spike. So the fact that it's all combining in that central bit, it's like it's pushing towards it being a you know, not a glowing part, but into a solid state with a point, and then back to a glowing. So that was kind of my interpretation. But I like the fact that there's 3. It keeps a familiar shape of the circle elements for the Bassards, but with the... I think we associate a bit more... The refit's so advanced now, like, ooh, gorgeous look. I guess having those more squared off shapes feels more advanced, in a sense. Maybe?
A little bit, yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, there's also not much detail around that. It's a very, again, simple hull. It could just be because they haven't finished it yet. But to have this distinct look is very different. So that was my thoughts on it. There was maybe a step from NX-01 in a sense. Yeah. And again, you've got to ask the question, is it going to link to the JJ versus being the canonical ships? Because then you've got to look at their Bassards. But that's a whole separate question. We'll get there later. But I just want to put that out now in terms of Bassards, because,
So I'm impressed with the 3 Bassard look, I got to say.
It is interesting, yeah.
Yes. So let's move on to the next picture. And this is a great shot of the bridge, which has no window, thank God.
Yes.
It's got no view screen window.
Yes. Although it does have little window display pocket things around it.
So does the refit, though. The refit has the little things around the edge that light up, right? So same kind of style. This is cool though, the way it's inset. I like that a lot. It's not really a raised bridge, so it is kind of protected in a way. And I love that the outer ring there, but there's windows that face inwards towards the bridge. So you could be like in the mess hall and you can see the bridge in the background outside the window. I mean, that's a great idea.
I mean, in terms of just making it different, having the there'd be these grooves in the hull really changes the feel. I'm not sure there's any functional reason necessarily, but stylistically very interesting. The thing that I really jumped at for this was the phaser ball turrets. While they're a little bit different because they've got a little nozzle at the end, phaser ball turrets immediately tell you the era. Immediately, because there is no phaser ball turrets from Enterprise B onwards, and there are no phaser ball turrets in X01 earlier. And while technically there are no phaser ball turrets on the Connie, you can sort of retcon there to be sort of, because there is sort of, but not really. So you can sort of say that. There are JJ ones, but that's a parallel universe, so you can kind of not say that. But it means it has to be. That straight away for me was okay, we know exactly where it is roughly in this time frame. Because someone online said, oh, it could be post-Stowe. I'm like, I really doubt they're going to bring back phaser ball turrets for post phaser strips. Like that's
agreed. So yeah, this does kind of go with what was early speculated after Star Trek 6 era, well, around that time, refit era, movie era, because that's when ball turrets were
so it links in more. Although to be fair, and this has also been theorized, it could be an older ship but refitted, hence why it has some newer piece of tech like the ball turrets, but it's an older ship. Because the Enterprise was around for 40 years, and obviously from cage to refit, completely different look. So maybe.
Yeah, maybe an early prototype that was never finished, that they kind of scrapped and put in the shipyard somewhere, and then pulled it out of mothballs, and they retrofitted it.
It's the only ship in the quadrant.
Yes, the one that we stuck in an asteroid long ago because nobody wanted it.
Because McCrory's Admiral just didn't have the... one other thing I want to notice here, if either side of the bridge, now we saw the first part of this shot, obviously I'm still framing this, are these elements that pop off the hull, that obviously are pumping oxygen or something. That's very much from beyond that style. We saw that in the trailer. But if you look at how that's laid out, that is almost like the NX-01. There's these two elements either side on the pontoons. Again, another visual something. And again, you've got to realize that exactly. You've got to realize these details. They didn't. When you got to imagine the amount of speculation, amount of scrutiny that we are doing now. They're not just going to say, let's add random hull details. Like everything is probably for a reason, and so those link very much to that era again.
Yeah, and especially for the designers doing this, they know the Star Trek fans. They know that what Star Trek fans see and what
they've watched Trekyards. They're not, hopefully. Yeah.
They're not just going to randomly put on pieces that look similar to another ship just because. There's obviously a link there somewhere that they want us to know about. So,
although, like I said, because we also see those style of things in Beyond. I haven't seen Beyond yet, but that style, that could also imply this is the older Beyond. It's still that timeline or that lineage because they just haven't incorporated them into the hull, but same stylistically. What is your take on the actual bridge module itself? Because it's got a lot of hull detail. It's got this top structure with inset black pieces. It's got a bit coming off the end of it. I mean, that's a interesting bridge module. What's your take on that?
Well, if you really look at it, it looks very similar to the refit style. Even the kind of detailing on the top of it, on the top of the dome, very similar. I don't know if it glows and lights up like the one on the refit does. Looks like it might a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell. But I put it as it looks very similar to a refit one. So I'm thinking the same kind of era.
I hadn't even considered the refit era, the ball turrets. I just had other things have put me not towards that. But we know that a bridge module can just be taken out. So of course, that's one of the few things that could be updated in a heartbeat, sort of thing. And obviously, there's a connecting point. Do you think that's actually it's door just like the Enterprise and Kelvin style in JJ verse, having doors at the bottom or back of the bridge that you can walk out? Do you think this is a sign that there's going to be an aft section that you just walk off?
I think so, yeah. I think that'd be cool to actually have one door that walks into a hallway that goes straight back, and then a turbo lift like right beside it that can go to different decks. I think that'd be neat.
To be fair though, not unprecedented, Voyager had a deck around the bridge that you could walk on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a set door that you can go out. I mean, there's doors in the conference room and things. I mean, there's not, it's got a very full bridge module. So I'm all for that. I kind of like the idea of walking down a corridor then into the bridge. I mean, these are good shots while having it limited just in that 360.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you had to guess a functional reason why the dip.
Yeah, lower, I don't know, lower sensor profile. I have no idea. Just maybe extra shielding for the bridge, perhaps. Perhaps, it's got stronger shield generators around there. I don't know. To protect the bridge, because everybody says the bridge is on top, it's an easy target. So, I don't know.
Well, that would make more sense if it was actually inside the dip rather than on the top of the dip.
Yeah. I don't know.
I feel like if you look at the top of the screen, there's those grills. I feel like I recognize them from somewhere. That same grilling. That is definitely in another Federation ship. Do you remember where, if there is it?
Not offhand, no.
Is there nothing like that on the refit?
Well, no. The only real grilling on the refit is on the nacelles. On the Constitution, there's grilling on the struts. Yeah, I can't place that.
Does one thing I noticed about this very quickly is that the color tone of the trailer was an orange, and it made the entire hull look orange. That orange style is very much J.J. Kelvin. And if you look at the Aztecing or lack of Aztecing or just hull plating, does that make you think it could even be alternate timeline or a new timeline or Kelvin style? I mean, what do you think?
Kelvin style, like an earlier form of hull plating, probably, but not necessarily. It is in the prime timeline. That's been verified. So, and as for the orange coloring, I actually really like the fact that the hull is a different color than white or gray. I think it's very cool. It could just because the sun is also right behind the asteroid, shining in on it. So I'd say probably it looks very similar to the Kelvin, so it's hard to say.
But what better? I mean, the XO1 is brand new. It was silver. The Connie was meant to be this palette, this beautiful, color. What a better way of making a ship look old than to make it look a bit more orange and it gives you the sign of rust. So is that an indication that the ship's old as anything?
Could be. It could be. It could also be stronger hull plating for a specialized mission profile. Who knows?
There you go.
So many possibilities. Experimental. There you go.
Mm.
All right, so let's move on to the next picture. This is a beautiful shot. There's lots to talk about on this one. We got the deflector, and did you notice when the deflector powered up, you heard that sound? That I love the little sound effect they added there. Very cool.
I'm so happy and kind of proud that they showed us the details. They didn't just show you a single.
Yeah.
Like it was actually, here is the ship, which is really awesome. Okay, well, so obviously the deflector, but I just recognized something else that I hadn't thought of. If you look at the saucer, there's the grilling, which there is on the top. We didn't see that yet, and there's also next to the deflector or sensor dome at the bottom. The Excelsior has the same style in the bottom. Doesn't on the top, but it does at the bottom. The Franklin also has on the top, but there is also that style roughly on the Excelsior.
Yeah, I noticed that right away too. It looks very similar, but at the same time, there's that lower dome, the way it's inset like that, reminds me very much of the Vengeance in the bottom. Looks very similar to that.
They haven't gone for a classic Trek feel, you can tell. I mean, they've stylistically thrown a few other things in. But let's go straight to the deflector. Now, am I right or am I wrong? But
you're probably wrong.
Thank you. Deflector, which says something straight away, but there's actually an outer light, an outer line of blue, which is in the refit. They have the circle and an outer circle there.
You're right, and this deflector speaks very, very much to refit era, movie era ships.
Could it be anything else? I mean, that's the question.
Who knows? I mean, we're speculating on just this short little clip that we have in these pictures. I mean, it's And this isn't necessarily the final version of the ship either.
True.
Like you said, they had 5 days to get this cobbled together for to show people, and I think they did a great job. But I think it's lacking a lot of detail, a lot of refinement. I think they'll listen to the fans a little bit, because it's been a very interesting argument since the ship's come out.
Which is like 2 days, no, a day and a half.
It's like, yeah, it's like 80% hate, 20% love. You either love this or you hate it. There's no real in between.
Okay.
I loved it. I loved it immediately when I saw it.
I liked this version. I think I've said to everyone who asks me, this is going to be our TNG. People did not like the D when it came out, the Enterprise D. They thought, oh my god, it was so different, so whatever, and they didn't like the crew. It was so different. And if you think about it, and we see it later on, but that ship had a huge saucer, very small secondary hull. This has a normal sized saucer, much bigger secondary hull. They've almost flipped. It was totally different then. This is totally different now, but now the D is one of the most loved ships. I don't know if this will be the exact same, but I think if the stories are good, if you just have good vibes from how it's told, you know, if you think about Star Trek, we had TOS, then we had the start of the movies, they were the same team, then TNG happened, and then the team that worked on TNG sort of filtered through and kept working till the end of Enterprise. It was the same, you know, people, or people who trained the people, the same production houses, so you had the same feeling, Star Trek, for the TOS and then the TNG to Enterprise. This is now a different team. You've only ever had 2 incarnations, and then the JJ, so you've had 3 incarnations of Star Trek. People don't like the JJ, people didn't like TNG when it came out. This is going to be another whole different thing, and I think people need to really realise that this is not the TNG Star Trek. This is something different.
And I was old enough when TNG was coming out that all I remember, the biggest argument, the biggest complaint that people had was it's not Kirk. You know, why are we getting a new Star Trek with a new crew? We don't want that. We want Kirk.
I hope we're beyond that. Yeah, beyond. I hope we're...
Yeah.
I always think beyond when I say beyond.
Yeah, but I don't think we are. Like you said, this is so different that I think it's really spun a lot of people's heads. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's the McCrory design. It was rejected for a reason. Why would you take something that Gene Roddenberry rejected and, you know, make that a ship because that's an insult to Gene Roddenberry?" And no,
that's too far.
It is, because this is a reimagining of the McCrory design, and a good one. Like I said in our mission briefing on the McCrory design, I don't like it. It looks like a glider.
And we've seen one of the real ones using this thing. Yeah, it wasn't any better.
It does,
you know,
it doesn't feel Star Trek. It feels kind of Star Wars, and McCrory, of course, right? But as I've said all along, the reimaginings of it, like there's the white one that we showed in our mission briefing that somebody really restyled it. Beautiful, looked like a cruise liner. I said,
yeah, absolutely.
This one, the way they mounted the engines at the back of the engine and have them facing forward, which we'll talk about later. But I mean, just the reimagining of this design, there's a few versions of it that I really absolutely love. I don't like the Ralph McCrory one, but you know, I like this one. I mean, it's fair to say that I can do that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Back to the Deflector for a second. I think it does tell us very distinctly a time period, although, like we've said, things can be refitted. Again, that could be easily refitted. You know, the superstructure doesn't need to be, but that can be. The NX-01 had a dish surrounded by glowing, but had a dish. The Connie had a dish. The Cage had a dish. The Kelvin did not have a dish, but it was a bit more intricate than this. The refit was a simple blue thing with an outside element. The Excelsior was an inset blue bit. This is exactly the refit piece, I would say. Almost to a T.
I would agree. Yeah.
So I've a couple more things to note on this picture, and what I just noticed now. Do you think left-hand side of the picture on the wing, is that a shuttle bay door?
I was going to ask that. I don't think so.
Okay.
It just looks like detailing to me. We haven't really seen the back of the ship, so we don't know if there is a shuttle bay that's visible at the back. If not, then yes, these could be shuttle bay doors on either side.
I would dig this. I would dig them being shuttle bay doors.
I would too. But I don't think they are. Just because of the way they're shaped, even it doesn't make sense that they would open with the way they're angled at the side. So I think it's more like I don't know,
grills.
Grills for something. Yes.
It's D7 detailing.
Yeah, I don't get. Yeah.
We're not gonna. Okay. Now, 2 more things I want to point out here. So, phasable turrets, we've established that. I've looked at this model quite in depth. Can't see any torpedo launchers, and we know that the Connie style has no visible apart from just a tube. Same with the NX. The all the movie eras have a distinctive blue element in the internal space. So that does glow. This has none. You can see it's in pure darkness. I couldn't see it on the other pictures. So it could be either the old style tubes or have no appears at all.
But that being said, as when we talked to Andrew Probert, he originally wanted doors over those that opened only when necessary. So it could be that there's doors that slide up, like a roller bay door, where that black area is.
What if it's the two wing mounts? What if that's two torpedo launchers each? That would deck it out. And it wouldn't be right next to the saucer to have secondary explosions. We've seen the Vengeance, how that can really mess up your day if they explode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two more things to note, and this one I thought was pretty interesting. On the neck, look at the windows. They come out of the hull. They're not internal, they're external windows. And there is also ones on the internal space. Stuart, what is that?
I have no idea. I wondered the same thing when I saw the neck. I thought it was very cool. It adds a nice look and texturing to it. But as for a reason for it, I don't know. I
mean, that would be an interesting stopgap. I mean, as someone who's taught 3D modelers on a pretty regular basis, windows are not exactly mega easy. I guess it'd be easy just to put on some detailing. But in 5 days, I mean, the team in Enterprise made their ships in, a working week. Sometimes more detail than this occasionally. And if you've got more than one modeler doing different bits, you can easily pop this out in a week. It's not this wasn't a rushed piece. They chose to have certain details. So does that imply? I mean, the next one had portholes. They didn't have windows per se, and the Connie had circles indent into the hull. I don't know what this says, honestly. I don't know what to take from that. That could easily be just work in progress, but to have that. Pretty interesting.
I agree. I'm kind of confuzzled about that myself. So.
And the last thing for this picture, because I have sort of in depth. Please, the next picture, Stuart. You throw everything out. You can be the guy for the next picture. Now, if you look on the bottom right of the saucer, that is the grilling. That's not a separate door. So, because we can't see any, and they did have them, that means this ship has no pulse phaser turrets like they do on the JJ ships. They have phaser turrets, bull turrets, and also pulse turret doors. This has no doors, and if it was in that timeline, that era, it would do, because all those JJ ships do, including the Enterprise. I don't know if the Kelvin, the Vengeance. Don't think the Vengeance have, but that's a whole different beast. So this implies again very strongly, not JJ timeline, because that'd be a very distinct detail to add.
I agree. Although you got to point out too how heavily armed this thing is. Like we see 6 turrets on this one side, six on the other.
Yeah, there's 6 phasable turrets. The Excelsior had 5 phasable turrets on the top of the saucer. The Enterprise refit had 3. So this is one more phaser turret, heavily armored than the Excelsior, which was in itself a huge upgrade. That's a lot of firepower in terms of phasers. Like I wrote that down specifically. We've really not seen a ship. That's the last ship we saw of that generational gap. There is no better armed ship of that era. Interesting.
So is this? Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next picture,
which is just a close up with the deflector on.
With the deflector more powered up. Yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing I just want to point out from this, it's very unlikely that this thing separates, saucer separation, because that neck and that saucer seem very integrated. I mean, it's possible that they could, but...
Well, I would guess it would separate, to be different, close to the deflector. So rather than the saucer separates, it's like the saucer and neck, like they have bolts that just open.
That would make perfect sense. And you could have, maybe it's designed to do that. Maybe it's designed to actually, that big wing can be like a huge attack ship. I don't know. Just throwing stuff out there. All right, so next picture again. Oh, this is from the top of the dry dock. You can see that detailing on the top of the saucer now. It is very reminiscent of the Franklin.
No, I haven't seen the film yet, so I'm sorry you can't go into everything yet about the detailing, but if there's anything prevalent, do. But again, interesting stylistically to include that. From this view, it actually kind of, apart from the obvious big detailing, the hull looks rather simple. Like it's just got some panel lines. It's not like an overly complicated thing. It is more one step before the Connie. Smooth details.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, lack of Aztecing too. I mean, there's just basically panels by the looks of it. It doesn't look all shiny and intricate patterned like the Connie does, or the refit.
Onto the next picture is again through dry dock bits moving. The thing I noticed from this is that we have got the green and red blinkies on either side of the saucer. There is actually very few blinkies on the entire ship. I watched it fly by, and there's nothing like the E or the D. There isn't the same array of blinkies, but at least those remain. But obviously, they exist on all those different ships. That doesn't really say too much timeline-wise. What do you think of this shot? Anything to point out?
Just there's some accent lighting on the top of the nacelles there, some spotlights, and no blue elements in the nacelles, which is interesting, because we know that also kind of sets a time period for me, because we know once we hit the C that it's all blue, all blue elements on the nacelles. Prior to that, not. I mean, of course, when they were at warp with the refit, the inner grills glowed blue, but.
So you think again this links between NX and C at the very least, and then if you take the Connie as having the blue glow, whatever you want to take, the refit has a little bit as well. The Excelsior doesn't actually have any glow, but it has these grills. So again, could be in the constellation again, as a version somewhere in that line, because it's physical details rather than big blue and red.
Absolutely. All right, so the next picture is just another shot of it moving a little bit forward.
This is the only shot of the aft, really, of the whole trailer.
Yeah, I wish I could see it from behind.
There's a missing detail here for sure. What do you think these lines are? These inset lines?
I don't know. See, the wing of that looks very Klingon.
Do you want to bring that up then? Okay,
so according to, I guess, Brian Fuller, from what I've heard on the comments on one of our other videos, this ship was purpose-built to tackle the Klingons after Star Trek 6. Apparently,
I've not heard that rumor at all. Wow. And I've been reading up everything that's been said. Wow, okay.
Apparently, the Klingons are going to be joining the Federation, or in the process to join the Federation, but this ship was purpose-built early on to deal with the Klingons specifically. So this ship was kind of pulled out of mothballs at the last minute because there's a faction within the Klingon Empire that wants to stir up some problems and, kind of be a pain in the neck of the Federation, and doesn't want the peace treaty to go through. So this ship was pulled out of mothballs to handle that situation. That's what I've read. That's apparently what Brian Fuller said. Whether that's true or not, it's all speculation.
That sounds a bit full on to be, him telling people and not to be headline news. That's like the entire storyline, isn't it?
I know. Well, not really, but
well,
that's just an abbreviated version of even what I read. So I don't know what to say. I mean, it makes sense that this thing was built for a purpose with all those phaser turrets, and even this unique design, perhaps. Maybe that design, because it looks like the D7 can maneuver exactly like a D7. I don't know.
I mean, you've got the thing about Alpha Core is it didn't look like a D7 because it's just a triangle. Whereas if we the inset, the cutting, I mean, that, again, stylistically, very similar. And if you're putting it anywhere in between NX and motion picture, that's when we have Trouble with the Klingons. That is the trouble with Tribbles Klingons. And those stylistically, that is the primary warship. We see the D7 all the way up to Katinga. There's going to be things in between. So that is the time of that being the primary warship. And so to have such a stylistically similar ship, I mean, it's interesting. It's a great idea. Although, again, it's called Star Trek Discovery, and it's called the USS Discovery. That certainly does not imply we're going to go kick Klingons' asses. And again, do you think put torpedo launchers and,
That's exactly what I thought when I read that comment. I'm like, well, it doesn't jive with the name. The name implies it's going to be an era of discovery and exploration, not a battle, a war series. So.
And again, this doesn't look like it looks very simple and robust. Doesn't look very elegantly, again, got to be compared to the Ares. Obviously, that, in a similar thing, was built to fight the Klingons. Same concept. Looks like an elegant, same rough timeline, if we're correct, if it's pre TOS anyway. I don't know. I think again it would be a surprise if they took the mouthful quarry, cut these bits, and then said after that, "Oh, it looks like Klingon design." Huh. And I said to my dad, if you put a neck on this ship, it would be a D7. I mean, or like just an alternate universe D7. I mean, even with the engine placement, I don't know. I mean, how would you feel if that was the storyline and that was the reason for this ship?
It's intriguing. I think no matter what, I'm going to find it interesting. I think.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that it's been said it's not episodic, it's going to be more of a story arc.
Novella, was always said.
Yeah, which is a beautiful idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down for anything right now. It's all speculation right now, as far as I'm concerned, until I hear something official. So, I mean, I think that'd be all right idea, but it doesn't jive with my view of a new series. I want it to start out being about exploration and maybe evolve, go into something like that.
I mean, you could say though that it was designed and roughly built in that era to fight the Klingons depending what era, whichever, and then like so it was mothballed and then refitted, and now is an old frame with new tech. So you have the rustiness, you have like the Serenity effect, but with the 2001 tech, advanced for the time. I'm not sure why necessarily you go for that. I mean, why not pick just an automatic? Again, they're going for something, and it's a pretty interesting thing. But I'd love to know, in a year's time, 2 years' time, when they can say these things, and not be worried. Do they think, let's make it look Klingon? Let's what was the thought process deeper than just what they can say right now? Well, it's worth pointing out. Last thing on this picture, if you look at the connection point between, or sort of what looks like a connection point between the secondary hull or the neck anyway, and the secondary hull wing element, there's clearly some metal that links it, and if you look at the back, it looks vaguely like a hinge, vaguely. Again, super vague, but I don't think it's gonna move. But doesn't the fact there's just this bit of metal or piece of hull that combines on, does that not feel a bit more rustic because they can't have these clean lines? They need to have pieces to help secure other pieces together. Does that not imply an older ship maybe?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, the way it's joined there, it doesn't look like it was poured or grown. It looks like it was welded together, and
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost looks as if they said, "Hey, at the end, guys, we've got to put something there. It'll break off when we go to warp." It's like, oh shit, it's fine now.
Yeah,
Titanium
we're good.
hull armor. Let's go on to the next picture. Oh, we do see the back. Yes, we do.
We do see the back. Yeah, that's right.
So, lots to talk about here, but Stuart, you throw stuff at me, and I will respond.
Well, first of all, the impulse engines are blue, which is an interesting choice. If those are, in fact, impulse engines, or maybe there's some other kind of propulsion drive that we're not familiar with yet.
Well, it's fair to say. I think it's fair to say they're impulse, and I'll jump in there. The NX-01's impulse drives were blue. There was 2 on each side. The Connie had 2 big grills, and they were orangey red. That again links to the idea that it's between timelines, and if it's a bigger ship, needs more drives, so now has 4 on each side. That is what I took from the impulse.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, I see a few other things that I just want to point out real quick. First of all, the edge of the saucer, the edge there looks very refit with the sensor bands. Also, the cargo bay doors. There's cargo doors on the edge of the saucer, and that neck profile, that is clearly Voyager. It's clearly the Voyager arc. It's even the same angle and everything.
I hadn't noticed that. Yeah, but motion picture-y, like just the
yeah.
I think you're right. I mean that saucer line, I hadn't noticed that, but you can't get away from that. That is a refit. I mean that's almost. I mean that's not TOS. That's not
anything but refit.
It seems very unlikely that they'd go from NX-01 portholes to TOS. Well, hold on. NX-01 portholes to square windows, exactly as the refit, to single set of windows, again circles, to square windows again. That doesn't work for me. So that is another amazing detail I had not even considered. I mean, to be fair, all the windows are square. Maybe a lot of the windows on the Connie were circle. I can't see any circle windows.
Interestingly enough, talking about windows, you look at the windows on the neck of this. These ones on this side don't look like they stick out like the other side. So I don't know if that was just because of the lighting with the sun, or these look flush with the hull.
They do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a later render when they fixed it. They can do that. Maybe this was the last shot they did, maybe. But what do you actually think of the impulse drive? You didn't say what you actually thought of having the two either side. What's four either side?
I think it's great. It looks cool. The shape of those looks very reminiscent of like when we see the refit in dry dock and those big spotlights on the ship. They're that shape, and they look like that kind of detailing. So they look like spotlights almost. But I like that shape for an impulse engine. I think it's cool, and to have on both sides, obviously, is very cool.
Well, it looks more like exhaust. Although I guess I got to point out that the Kelvin style ships, they have internal circles within the drive. Impulse drives. So stylistically another link to that, which I mean it would make some sense potentially to link some stuff. I'm not exactly against that, but I'm fine with four. I mean it's a big bulky hulking ship. Why wouldn't you put impulse drives? And we know that the Voyager had impulse engines in the actual wings, the equivalent of the wings. That was a thing they said we've got to put it there.
And speaking of which, if you look just to the right of those impulse engines, there's like little ribbing, which is also, again, very similar to the ribbing on the back of the Voyager struts. Same kind of style.
So you're saying this is Voyager era? Confirmed?
No. It's got some Voyager-esque parts to it.
Well, it's nice to think. It's nice to think that we see parts that we know go into other ships afterwards. Like this is part of the evolution.
Yeah. Now look, do you think that's a shuttle bay door there between the impulse engines?
It's gotta be. So. It's gotta be. I mean, come on. It's you can see it's in like that. There's space on top. I mean, I guess it'd be like that and then that, or both slides out. But I mean, it's gotta be. I mean, it is the place for shuttle bay, and it's a big shuttle bay, which is Mouth Macquarie linking, and it looks kind of cool. I would be fine. And if there are doors at the front, a through deck. That would visually, can you imagine in the show, we see a shuttle fly in to this massive deck, like kind of like the JJ Prize, I suppose, and then just fly out. Like visually, that would be incredible to see. And if it is designed for rescue missions, that you need big space would make sense.
That would be cool. I actually really like that. I never thought of that. But if those ones on the front are, this would be like a Star Trek show about a carrier. We've never seen that before.
See, that's the vibe. That's what we said when we saw the Mouth Macquarie. It's absolutely a carrier. Because I mean, it's quite bulky. I mean, the neck is pretty thick. The saucer's pretty normal sized. And the secondary hull's pretty good. Have a smaller crew. Have a big through deck. Have a good engine room in wherever it will fit. Hey, make it a carrier.
Have fighter pilots, man.
Well, Star Trek's not about fighters per se, but definitely a squadron of shuttles. But yeah, and also I note on the bottom of that there's also a grilling that looks kind of the door underneath that what would be a shuttle bay, and it kind of looks like the other doors. So maybe that could be a cargo door to the cargo bay, and the top's a shuttle bay, so it's like a multiple level thing, like the Excelsior.
Cool. But anyway, let's go into the next picture, which is another shot of the underside of the saucer. Wow, I love the lighting on it.
It's refit, but not quite.
Yeah,
it's a bit more rough. My view.
Yeah, it's one thing that really stuck out to me through this whole trailer, even at the end where you see it from the bottom. Just how much the lighting stands out. I really like that. I love that about Star Trek ships, and that's one thing that a lot of these shows like Voyager and TNG were missing, because the ship was all just illuminated. I love the self-illumination, seeing the spotlights on the registries. I think that adds a lot of realism.
And again, that was only present in NX-01 motion picture era. Nowhere else was that there was the side, decals illuminated. That didn't exist in other timelines. So again, very specific.
I think this is going to be more of a cinematic feel to it than an episode, like a TV series feel, is my view on this series, because it's going to be more of an ongoing story arc through the whole season at least. So I think it's going to feel more cinematic and not episodic, which is nice.
I mean, just make it like Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones is each sort of a story, but it's really just a flowing narrative, and you love it.
Yeah. Another thing that's very, very evident here is the registry numbers on the bottom are exactly like the TOS Connie, one on each side, and then flipped. Yeah.
Which isn't on the D, isn't on the E. They just have the front one. Isn't on the refit.
There's the one there's one at the front on the
You're
refit at the
right.
bottom, and at the back it says Enterprise.
You're right, and it isn't on the NX-01, so that is a Connie only detail.
That's a TOS, very very TOS era aesthetic. Yeah.
So we're saying it's pre-TOS because of this, post-TOS because of this, post-TMP because of this, post-NX-1, pre-NX-1 because of this.
I think they just threw it all together to confuse us.
I mean, oh dear me. Well, I've got to say, I actually like the three-dimensional feel. I mean, I'm all for the lower sensor dome being internal, having that I love that as a detail. Not so much keen on the Franklin / Excelsior. If they say, oh, it's the Excelsior, I'd be like, okay, cool. If it says Franklin, I'm like, okay. But I like how dimensional the saucer now is. You lose space, although you get more windows, which is awesome. But a lot more windows, which really actually kind of makes it pop even more. But dimensionally, it really gives it this feel that you just have not had before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on to the next picture is the same basic thing, although that's interesting. This is the bottom after the ship. There's a light there. Is that plating or is that a door, do you think? And there's two phasable turrets on the bottom. That's right at the edge. That's right at the back of the thing. So there's a blinky and turrets just like the refit had. I hadn't even noticed that before.
Wow, it's really hard detail to see.
Oh, there's two. There's two on either side. That's interesting. Two. Wow, that's different because the refit has 1 2 1 2 in the middle, but this has 4 right at the back.
Wow,
that's a lot of phasable turrets.
It is, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Jeez. Well, let's skip right. That's next picture. Oh wait, now it's leaving again. Oh, and you can see at the back. Yeah, so you've got that. What I can think is probably a door, and the aft. Definitely a door right at the back. Oh, and look above it. Are there windows, just like Voyager has, right above what's probably the shuttle bay door, like this protruding section on top of it? It looks like windows to me, just like Voyager has.
Could be, yeah.
Oh, and they have a self-illumination after the impulse engines, after the ribbing. There's a little light.
Yeah, kind of in the middle of the ribbing, which is really strange.
That is weird. That's weird.
It is weird.
So I'm guessing just by the lighting of this trailer, it's going to be a very darkly lit show. So having all these other lights will actually let you see the ship, and that's why all the windows are probably decked out with windows.
You know that bottom spotlight that's kind of shining on what you said is a cargo bay door that's like textured? You know what that's for? That's for when they make the toy. That's where the battery compartment will be. That looks like the battery compartment little grippy thing for your thumb.
Oh, I'm not even going to disagree. You mad genius. Love it. Oh dear.
Awesome. Next picture.
Yeah. Oh, leaving again, and the ribbing continues and shrinks. Huh. They get very thin, don't they? Those struts. Oh no! Look, Stuart, there is blue glow.
I was just going to point that out. Yes,
there is blue glow.
Yeah, and if you go to the next picture, you can see this little thin striping.
Oh shit! On
the inside.
I had not. I think I love Mission Briefing.
Yeah.
And there's a red underglow. There's a red glowing Cylon element underneath the Bassards, with what could be a separate hatch. There is blue glow, Stuart. Oh. Oh. Oh.
They're confusing us.
Oh, that's really exciting. That is really exciting. And they're flush with it. It's very flat.
And it doesn't break the laws. It doesn't break the rules because there's line of sight of those blue parts. I think.
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. At least some of it. Okay, Stuart. There are blue glows, so that means that it's gonna be after NX, but it could be pre-TOS then, because they had, that would make sense because they have several blue grills in the middle, so having a single line.
Yes.
Yeah. It looks like a sandwich, like with a creamy blue in the middle. But there is actually, you know what? Now this is something we've heard previously. If you look at the left hand, you can't tell on the right, but if you look at the left hand side, there is clearly the Bassard, the front bit, then a raised bit. What do you think if that slides down to cover the warp drive and then opens for it to engage? So it's armored.
It does look like that's a possibility. And that's kind of interesting because if you'll remember, a little birdie during our Mission America tour told us that well, we were asking questions about things, and he asked
Mm-hmm.
if there's blue glows on the nacelles, and
Yep.
some little birdie said something about, well, they might be, but they might be covered.
But
So
there is blue probably, but they're internal. So interesting. But
yes, yes.
yeah, so that's something we corroborates what we know, and makes sense. I mean, it links into TOS having nothing.
Hmm.
It links to a more armored ship, you know. And I said, you know, the NX refit covers up the blue glows just like TOS, and you know, like I theorized yonks ago, TOS needs armor because the warp drive is so new and advanced that they can't actually have things, you know, out. I wait for the helicopter to go by.
Couldn't hear it at all.
Oh, I think, well, I think the recording could. Yeah, and there is definitely, because you can see on the right hand side, there's grilling on the top and a white blinky and a red blinky like you would.
Hmm.
And isn't there a spotlight on the top of the motion picture enterprise to look that casts light at the top of the Bassard, like the top of the nacelle? Is there a light there or not?
Yes, yes. There's lights on. Well,
Hmm.
they're actually mounted on the saucer, but they shine on and at the front of the
Oh,
nacelles.
okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
And well, there's spotlights all over that ship. Lighting it for my model is a pain in the ass because you got to replicate it all. But anyway,
Also, you can see on the bottom of the saucer, there's also what looks to be a door, or not. Actually, if you look at it, on the left-hand side, if you zoom in, there's a plate that looks like it's been slid out. Three little circles in it.
ooh,
Could be a door.
photons.
Could be photon launchers because there isn't circle like anywhere else, and it's not the best place to put torpedo launchers. And it's very small launchers.
Yeah, but you really have to zoom in to see that detail, though.
That's why I got 1080p, so we could do that. And also
Okay.
enhance the lighting slightly for all these. But that's interesting, because then imagine if it does slide, open it, you know, it's like missile bay doors, opens and it fires. Because visually, it zooms in, fires from the saucer, something we've never seen before. Except the Connie did, and the NX-1 did, but sort of not really. Like, that's interesting in between. And also got the phasable turrets to fill in the gaps.
Those are very Star Trek Online-esque at the front of the
They
saucer.
are. So, post-stow confirmed.
Stamp of approval. Ka-ching. All right, so next picture.
Yep.
This is where we get a little bit closer to detail, and the front registering light comes on. It's USS Discovery, NCC 1031. Now, one of the first things I want to point out about this, right off the top, that lettering, that font is clearly TOS. That is
Yes.
clearly the TOS.
And we've had Michael Wiley, who does fonts a lot, say it's not JJ, completely different fonts. So we know straight away, boom, not that.
Yeah, and it is very it is TOS. It's not very TOS. It is TOS. It's not refit error because it doesn't have the black outlined with the red.
Yes, I was about to say that exactly. Yep.
And it's also, it doesn't, the USS Enterprise doesn't curve around on the top like it does on the refit. It's straight across, just like the USS Enterprise on TOS, and then the curved registry. Again, that speaks TOS.
Now let's get into the controversy then about timeline, because now I'll say pro and against, and then you'll throw your bit, and I'll say I've researched this quite a bit, and I'll say the thing. So NCC 1031. Oh, the Constitution class isn't NCC 1701, and the NX one is NX01. So it must be 1,030 ships after the NX and 670 ships before the Connie. Therefore, directly in between the timelines, which sort of makes sense, maybe, kind of. And at least, whatever we can say, it does give a rough era time rough. But Stuart, does that not make sense?
That does not make sense. First of all, the whole registry number being the order it was made in is, in my mind, bullshit. I've never agreed with that. It could be that this was design. It could be design numbers when they were designed. So we know that the Constellation in TOS doesn't have a 17 anything registry number. It's 10, right? 1071.
That was a big thing I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah. So the registry number issue is a non-issue as far as I'm concerned. It can mean many different things. I know they've kind of tried to retcon it. What Michael Okuda has, especially in TNG with those registry numbers. But anyway.
I would say it's a rough rule of thumb, but you certainly can't, especially with the continuity errors, you can't take it as the law. you know. And, 1031, it's very likely it's around those eras, at least built around that era anyway, given all the details we just talked about. But in my research, I want to point some stuff out to you, right? So keep in mind, NX-01, theoretically the first Warp 5 ship, and it's an NX. There aren't any NCCs because there's no Federation, right? NCC 1701, and it's well into the Federation. It's not the first Constitution class. It's one of the 12 or 17 colonies, right? Perfect. Well, like you just said, we see the constellation. Well, first of all, the Constitution is 1700, which implies that could be the start of that class, or whatever. The colonies is the 1700 class, because they seem to be 1700, most of them, but 1700, fine. But like I say, the constellation, the original constellation, which is therefore not the first Constitution class, so the Constitution, 1700, was launched before the constellation 1017. And we know this is still canon because if they wanted to retcon this and change it, Mike Okuda wouldn't have okayed it for a remastered TOS back in 2000 and whatever. They kept that in. If they wanted to make it 1700 something and change it, that's fine. They didn't. So the fact they kept it means that's canon. So we know that the Constellation, an post-Constitution ship, is 700 less. So this ship, according to that logic, was launched after the Constitution class Constellation. That doesn't make sense. Then I throw something else at you. Well, we know some other ships that were in the rough same timeline. The Reliant, 1864, it's a motion picture era ship. We don't know if it was pre that, but we know it was around that time. The Bozeman, a Soyuz class, 1941. Saratoga, 1887. The NCC 2000, the Excelsior, we know was after. That's fine. And the Jenolan, 2010. Again, where that lies, that's fine, but we know it's at least motion picture era within Nacelles. That sort of does stick to that era. But then we know things like the Curry, the USS Curry, which is again obviously a refit era ship, is 42254, the 42000s. So does that mean that they were building refit era ships 40,000 ships later? I don't know. The Constellation, again, Picard ship, again, a refit era ship, 55,000 NCC. So again, are you saying that design lineage stayed that long, even well after the Enterprise C? Doesn't necessarily make sense. Yeah. And really nice odd one out is the USS Grissom, Star Trek 3, NCC 638. So that means, if this is following the rules, the Grissom is, so the motion picture style-ish ship seen in Star Trek 3 is 400 ships older than this ship. Stylistically, though, it fits in with the refit era. But if you want to actually go into nitty-picky detail, the nacelles are not refit nacelles. They're just square nacelles. And it's not a saucer per se, and it's got a second. Every detail about that ship, if you look at it now, it's not actually refit era. It's actually it could have been refitted with that plating, but if you take that plating stuff away, maybe that's the oldest ship. Go for it. I
gotta jump in here. The Grissom, now that you mention it, the saucer on the Grissom looks exactly like this saucer.
Yep.
Detail wise.
Sort of. Less indents. But
with the 3D styling and the yes, absolutely. That's interesting.
NCC 638. So if you're following that rule, the Grissom is the oldest ship we've seen in Star Trek, bar the NX-01. Which, it's a different style of ship. It's not Connie and Saucer. It stylistically, you can sort of say it's different. And does that mean that it could it have been built later? In which case the numbers do not mean a thing. Or was it a heavily refitted ship? But it means it lasted possibly 80 years and until it was blown up. But we know the bridge module's the same. We know they use the same uniform.
Well, we know the problem with the Constellation is basically just low budget in the 60s and no real rules for that. They just
like I said, they could have retconned that out. Could have changed it in post.
I know, but I mean, I've never conformed to that. Registry number dictates when it was built. I've never done that, and everybody argues that point. I think that's a Trekyards episode in itself, just registry numbers. But we don't want to stick on this too long.
But what do you think about the registries I read out? The fact that Grissom is 400 before, that the Constellation is 17 before. What do you think about that? Because these are canon ships, they can't go away from this. Because they picked a registry, so they picked it based on these other things.
Even the Scouts and the Saladin classes and stuff have 3-digit registry numbers. NCC 583.
Again, not canon though. You can't use those, unfortunately.
True,
you can't use those.
I just think different registry numbers mean different things. Either different construction contracts, different naval docks that created them, different assignments. There's so many possibilities or different. I don't know.
And are you telling us that like the Curry, the TMP or the motion picture Starship, it was built all the way in TNG, or was it just re-registered once it became a certain age? Maybe it was refitted, changed. Just because the Enterprise got refitted, and they're an A, maybe another hull refitted, slap a new name, slap a new registry, so maybe it can keep updating itself. Why not? Why would you build Mirandas all the way in TNG when you have literally a lot of other things? Because it's fine they stay alive, but to be that old, or to be that new, sorry, when, the Reliant, the Miranda classes came out at 1800, and yet they still existed at the 4500s.
I know.
And I want to throw one more in there. The Franklin, again, haven't seen the film, can't say exactly, and parallel universe, but maybe not. NCC 326. So if you believe these NCCs are accurate, continuity is NX-01, NX-02, USS Franklin, Grissom, Constellation, Discovery, then Constitution, then Enterprise. That's the line. That's the lineage.
Although the Constellation could, in all fairness, the Constellation could have been renumbered after an older ship called the Constellation that was destroyed in some horrific accident or whatever, and it was named that in honor and given that registry number of the lower 1017 in honor of the older ship named that.
Sure thing. Which could also mean this ship was given older registry, even though it should be in the 2000s.
Exactly.
It was backdated.
Exactly.
But that gets into territory we've never seen before or even thought of before. So again, very deliberate, because that's a statement. 1031, and to the fan that doesn't know all this in-depth stuff, that does tell them it's between NX and Connie. That's what they're publicly saying, because most people don't know all this stuff, and even if they're thinking in depth, that's what it's telling the fans. Kelvin was NCC 0514.
0514.
Which is weird then, because the Franklin was just 326. It had a 0 for some reason. So it's younger than the Grissom, older than the Franklin, and with a 0, which the other two don't have.
It's
whatever.
It's one of those Star Trek conundrums. But one thing I want to point out before I move off this picture is the fact there are 6 turrets on the top, comprising of 12 phasers in total. That's a lot of phasers.
I said before, Excelsior had 5 sets of 2. This is...
And being called the Discovery, it doesn't really fit for me, because I would think more scientific and exploration, but this looks like a warship almost with that amount of weapons on it.
I mean, so to be fair though, what are phaser ball turrets? They're primarily just in the turret itself. There's not that much below it, the hull. So all you have to do is say, right guys, we're going to rip off the previous turrets, add more. Same with you could just retroactively add more in. There's no reason why you couldn't add 12 to the Excelsior saucer.
Oh yeah. Well, absolutely. But I mean, just it screams a lot of weapons for a Starfleet ship.
Would it be interesting if this ship was mothballed, served its life, mothballed, brought back years later, the ship of Discovery then turned into more of a ship that had to be heavily armed and more of a warship? Wouldn't that show the negativity of the Federation that we have to then change? Would that be an interesting statement? The Discovery, one of the first warp flyers, old design, then became semi-warship, hence really armed. It's like things can get misused.
So going to the next picture, this is where I just was smiling when I saw this. Like I said, the self-illumination on that saucer and just the different rings of lights, even around the edge of the saucer, there's some really cool lighting effects.
Yeah, actually, I didn't notice that. They're being lit. Wow, this is ridiculously well lit.
Even the bottom of the wings, or the delta thing at the back there, is lit, and I think it's beautiful. I love this redesign of the McQuarrie design. People have kind of jumped on me and said, "Whoa, you said in your McQuarrie thing that you didn't like it, so you're a hypocrite." No, I'm not. This is not the McQuarrie design. This is based on the McQuarrie design.
It's the McQuarrie shape, and then done completely different things with. It's like the Phase 2 Enterprise and the Connie. It's not the same ship. It might share most things, but the differences can change your opinion completely. But it's still a saucer, hull, nacelles, all the same. Well, yeah, it's a different ship.
And that's interesting being said. I love the Constitution class. I don't like the Phase 2 refit
Yeah.
I absolutely hate that. So
So there you go.
there you go.
Point made. This, I want to throw out one thing before we sort of close out. I did count the decks roughly, and there were at least 11. It's not a huge number, but I did sort of count, which says a certain amount of scale. You can see the scale based on the ship. It's not a huge ship. It's not a huge. It's a decent sized ship. It's not meant to be a D size. Whoa, it's a huge. But it's also not meant to be a small ship. You know, it's not an NX. It's a definite size.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically said all my notes, which is pretty good. But yeah, well, I think though definitely this is definitely a D5 stylistically, the bottom. Although people say it's the Starfleet Delta, I do think it's a bit. I know it's not. It's like saying the D5 is a. There's only a certain number of shapes. I hope they didn't specifically cut it out to make it a Delta, because that is gimmicky. It's for the sake of it that I don't appreciate. In a sense, you know what I mean. And D7 maybe, but again, whatever. But to take out that chunk makes it work, in my opinion. That's the missing piece. One other thing I want to point out: there isn't any pennons. There isn't any motion picture style pennons or red stripes.
No, but they could. That just could be detail they didn't have a chance to add. Perhaps it was that.
True.
Or I don't know. You would think they would because they got the registry. I don't know. That's a good point though. But I like the new hull coloring. I really do. I think that kind of brownish, rusty color. I like that a lot. I think that looks cool.
It looks old, rusted, but without lights, it looks alive.
Mm-hmm.
And the red glow is interesting, and the small deflector, but it makes sense. It's inset. You know, it's such a fascinating ship. Like I said at the start, it's not the hero ship I'd pick. It's not got the Star Trek aesthetic in terms of the hero Enterprise. We've only ever really seen Enterprises, almost. It hasn't got that aesthetic, but it's not meant to. It's if you had a Reliant instead of the Enterprise for Star Trek 4, comes back, boom, you got Reliant, and it was a brand new ship. They'd say, wow, that's not a very Star Trek aesthetic, is it? You know, not. Or all these, a Saber class. If a Saber class was a ship instead, they say, wow, there's nothing like a Federation aesthetic. But it's like, Federation isn't one aesthetic. It has a saucer, it has nacelles with bassards, it has a deflector. That is a Starfleet aesthetic. They just have lots of variants. So it is absolutely, completely fine to have his, you know, it's clearly Starfleet. It's just not the design we already know about. And if it's between NX and TOS, or somewhere, or even, you know, like I said, refit and TOS, then it's fine, because then you've got these stylistically different elements, you know, the tech look of the NX, you know, the warp delta ship from Enterprise, also possibly a link having the pointy back bit. That's also stylistically, you know, they already had pointy ships with nacelles, like, you know, again, there are stylistic reasons this could easily be. So people say it's not a Starfleet looking ship. It's not the conventional, but hey, neither's Reliant, neither's the Akira, neither's a bit more, but Saber, Steam Runner. I mean, these aren't, but we still think of them as Star Trek ships. Defiant, that could be any single sci-fi show. We just think of it as Star Trek because it's part of our universe, you know. So, yeah, it's a fascinating ship, and
I love it. I absolutely love the design. I liked it the first instant I saw it, and then I was just all the negativity surrounding it. It's really kind of got me down because I don't know why people don't like it. It's because it's new and it's different, and it's not what they were expecting. I think they were expecting something post TNG, probably. We don't know when this is, and they were expecting something new out of the box, I guess. But this is.
Oh, I think they're hoping for something very similar, stylistically Enterprise looking. You know, people say this ship is fugly. We have trained ourselves on this show to look past the obvious, to look at the details, to appreciate the subtleties. You know, the fact that we've now seen the blue glow, the red glow, all these things go towards it being not just, design, to, wow, details, wow, thought, wow, Trek parts. And it can be the greatest sum of its parts, you know. I mean, it's not the sexiest ship. It's clearly not trying to be. The E is a sexy ship. The D is not necessarily a sexy ship. It's a very elegant ship, not a very sexy ship. The refit is clearly not meant to be that. You know,
and just remember, everybody. everybody, please remember how many people hated the D when they first saw it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like it. It wasn't like their old Enterprise, and now almost everybody loves the D. A lot of people still absolutely hate it, but they're the minority, I think. And I think that's going to be the same thing with this.
I think that's a great summation. I think we both like it. And I think my final thought is, I hope it's a one-season ship, or it's not the primary, at least. If it's not the primary ship, that's great. If there's several ships in the fleet, that's great. If it's the carrier of other ships, that's also great. Like if it's the Galactic is not the most sexiest ship ever. It's an amazing ship, but it like complements other ships in a sense. Like we don't always focus on the outside of that ship all the time. I hope it's an anthology. I hope there's multiple ships to see these other eras, because this, if this is a design in the new continuity that existed in between NX and Connie, then what an amazing way to say we love Trek is, Ralph McQuarrie, you designed a ship in the 70s, we're making that canon, and it would have been in between Connie and Refit, and so let's just push it back a little bit. Boom. Even more canonical lore. And if it went ahead and said the Doug Drexler NX Refit's canon, then all these amazing in between steps that work, that are interesting, how cool would that be? Although again, this ship is actually the Ralph McQuarrie is canon in the motion picture. Star Trek 3, Star Trek 3. We see this ship in dry dock, so we know this style of ship is canonically in Star Trek.
Yep.
So this is the precursor to that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or exactly. So I'm hoping that they don't scrap this idea. Apparently everybody's like, oh, well, it's just an early test thing. They'll listen to the fans and they'll get rid of this shit. No, I don't think so.
No,
there might be some refinement going on. I'm sure there'll be a refinement. And like I said in my first reaction to it, the animation was very crude and didn't feel realistic. But I think that's because it was an early animation. They only had 5 days.
Yeah,
give them some slack.
As a guy who does CG, tries to mimic Enterprise Voyager in the movies, this felt like a TV movie, a low budget TV movie CG.
Mm-hmm.
Cheap effect, it shows the ship, not the best lighting, but that's fine. If this was the very first test of the ship, it looked good. It showed what it's meant to show. They're obviously using different softwares to Lightwave. They're obviously not doing the same stuff. And when it's finally done, they're probably going to throw more money into it just because we had a reaction to this style of CG, honestly, But hey, the more you support the show by, watching on Netflix and buying the subscription service if you're in the USA, put more money in, the CG will look better and better, and we'll get, this ship looking gorgeous, So that is it for this special bonus first look amazing review. Longest ever episode of Mission Briefing. I am so impressed with us, how much we looked at the ship. I did not expect as much we had. What do you think?
I think a lot of the people that watch this are going to appreciate everything that we pointed out, because as we were doing it, I was seeing things that I hadn't necessarily seen before as well, which happens all the time in Mission Briefing. And I think it might bring a new appreciation for a lot of people for this ship. So I'm hoping that's what we do. Yeah,
it's the new Trek guys, and support it because they're good people working on it. We know other people might work in it, so support it. And it's a fascinating ship, and it produced a great episode of Trekyards. So there we go. So until Wednesday, you've got another episode of Trekyards coming out, guys. This is Commander Cockings.
And Captain Foley.
We will see you next time. Bye, guys.